Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. One of the biggest problems with the idea of the college concept is this concept that human beings require a continuation of the kind of teaching they had when they were kids from like a parental figure, and it switches over a person's lifetime from cascading influences from the parent, the family structure, to institutions that then take the baton and run with it to make a complete human being. That academic fantasy has been permeating the background of human civilization for thousands of years to poor effect. And this came up the other day. I was talking to a bunch of people. It was one of those lunches where people who are trying to impress you talk about their credentials. And one of the people at the table told me, well, so-and-so is a Purdue man, and they came with all this great background of all these extracurriculars. And that's all fine, and people who go to all these different colleges, I mean, all experiences in life can help make someone a better person. Experience for its sake is the teaching tool, not necessarily what is taught. And the problem when I start hearing talk like that, I start thinking, oh gosh, here's somebody that thinks that they can buy their way into experience, and just because they went to a particular institution, that classifies them as a quality person. And it's clearly not the case. And my experience with that type of talk is that what you're getting for people who follow the classic institutionalized value system, that you're going to get all the problems that come with it. If you're looking for a person who's thinking outside the box to solve problems that are inside the box, and the solutions are out of where everybody's at, you're not going to find somebody who's been institutionalized and checked all the boxes that society incorrectly placed for them and expect everything to work well. That's a problem. So you have a lot of issues that you have to solve on the academic front. Not to throw all the baby out with the bathwater. I think the idea of higher education is a wonderful concept, but I do not see it applied anywhere in the world very well in the current state that it is, because the criteria that was set is wrong. The kind of learning that institutions provide is the problem. The process of learning might have value to it, but it was what people learn that caused all the trouble. And so when you start classifying that the value of the institution is the institution itself, and someone checked off the boxes that showed that they were compliant individuals that will make good employees, you're probably not going to get something better than what you've had, because everybody's been trained the same way for the same dumb things. And that's the problem with colleges these days. You look at what they do to get federal money. They've become liberalized and essentially advocates for the Democrat Party, because the funding allocation has steered them in that direction. So in order to get federal money and to feed all their overbloated labor union costs, or their expectations of what that profession should pay or does pay, or the value of what that profession provides to society in general, is not aligned with free market principles. And that is the core of the issue, because in order to avoid dealing with it, they just do what they have to do to check the boxes to get federal money. And that means DEI programs that they've implemented that have really watered down the true value of the education system itself. So when I hear the word college, especially in the modern sense, I think of people who have been endured a extremely liberal education, and to what degree have they been damaged by it, and whether or not that what they did learn in those institutions can be valuable despite that influence, that background. And I've seen people who come out of the college system that takes them 20 years to get back to somewhat normal, from the idealistic teenagers that they were before they went in, whatever thoughts and dreams they had when they were children, that get essentially crushed by the magnitude of adulthood, compounded with this institutionalized form of learning that has never really worked in human society, to the point where it produced happy people, successful cultures that were morally stout and not corrupted by corrosive influences that make people essentially nothing but fancy prostitutes. And when I say that, I mean people who would do anything for money, whether you're selling cookies or you're selling your body. What you're doing, you do it for the value of the exchange rate and what that service brings to you. And in the case of colleges, they've geared the entire institution to federal money. And the only way to clean it up is take that federal money away. And it forces them to be more competitive. And that's certainly going to be the case when it comes to the public education systems and having a school choice. The per pupil cost has to get down under 10,000 into the 9s and the 8s. Not what it is now, which is practically double that. But in order to force them to go there, the federal money has to get out of the mess, and then these all the education institutions have to stop catering themselves or curriculum to acquiring that federal money. So you got to take that cycle out of the process because it's ruining people. And then when you think of college, unfortunately, the brand that you think of is, oh gosh, the person that went through that, got that education, has been liberalized. They're essentially going to be Democrats. Now, how many parents work like crazy to save up money to send their kids off to college, only to have the kids come back from that college experience all messed up with liberal ideas? Because all the people teaching at these schools are a bunch of Democrats and very progressive thinkers, and that we say the value is that they're learning things outside what they didn't get when they were living with their parents. And the assumption is that the institution has more value than the parental structure that the kids spent 18 years of their life learning. And then all of a sudden you switch it to this new thing, the shock alters who they are and dislodges them from the foundations that they were raised with, and then they often spend the rest of their lives getting back to that, getting back to their value system. And then we look around and wonder why there's so much failure. So, I go to those kinds of lunch business meetings where people start talking about where they went to school, whether it was a Purdue man or someone who went to Yale or Ivy League stuff. We see how much federal money is tied up into those schools, and really how effective are they? They're living off reputations that are in most cases over a century old, and most of the best people we've had produced in society were self-initiated. They didn't get where they were as successful people through institutional knowledge. But the fantasy, and it goes back to before the Greeks, the fantasy is that academia can produce a good, healthy, stable society. And there has not been a period, one time in history, that's proven that to be the case. There's not a bunch of academic institutions that are producing the next Socrates or Plato or Aristotle or Pythagoras. That's not happening. We'd like to think it does. We'd like to say we're committed to learning. We'd like to say we have an educated society, and we put value on education as a status builder to get up over a class assumption. If you've become educated, then you've elevated yourself socially in the scheme of things above your station of family raising from logic that was given on the farm. I think a lot of people these days would like to know a lot more people who were raised on farms, who got up in the morning and milked some cows and had to collect eggs from the chickens and baled hay in the summertime with their shirts off and sweat pouring off their back because it's hard work. I think we were a better country. We were better. Our character was better when hard work was the way to elevate yourself in society, not your navigation of institutional knowledge. And then those institutions being controlled by federal dollars that you acquire by adopting very progressive policies. And what it's done is it's really trashed our entire education system to the point where I'd say it's worthless. I don't find a lot of value in people that come out of that. I see them struggle most of their lives trying to recover from the damage incurred during those college forming years. And that's a hard reality for a lot of people to face. But at the core of our discussion on what we should be doing with education, I think what you need to do is smoke out the Democrat policies that are wrapped up in these institutions by cutting back the federal dollars and forcing them all to function at a much lower per pupil cost. And then you'll start to see through the competitive model, better education systems emerge that don't have all the left-wing politics wrapped up in it. And when we talk about left wing, we're talking about Karl Marx, and you're talking about those types of people, those kinds of socialist Marxist thinkers, the Engels types that think that communism is the way to go. That's what we talk about when we talk about left wing progressive thinking. It's what they all are. And it's dangerous to send your children to those places and to pay a lot of money for education that is worthless to them for the rest of their lives, because it's essentially the Democrat playbook. And no matter where you're going to school, whether it's the Ivy League, New England schools, or a school in the heartland like Purdue, or no matter where it is, University of Texas, University of Florida, Ohio State, they all have the same problem. They have very progressive Democrat staffs that they acquire because they need federal funding, and they're addicted to that level of money, and they bend over backwards to get it. And then what the kids end up being taught is all the wrong things that don't help them in life. And it becomes an anti-family. Drop everything you learned up till the time you're 18 or 19 years old, and let us shape you into the kind of person that society needs you to be, which is a left-wing radical. And some kids survive it just fine. They bounce back, especially if they have good families, good family support, but a lot don't. And when you start hearing a bunch of people who aren't very smart start yakking about the titles of the schools they went to and assume that solves everything, everybody that came out of those institutions is going to be a quality candidate, you should hire them. And my experience says, no, that's not how you get good people. You'll usually end up with the kind of people you're trying to get away from when you make decisions based on that assumption, because that tells you you're dealing with someone who's in the box, not outside the box. And most problems you have to solve are outside the box. You have to get outside a particular mode of thinking in order to be successful. And those types of people aren't going to get you there. And when you have to admit that to yourself, and you have to say, well, why are we doing it at all? Why do we commit ourselves to these institutions? And that's a good question. And should we? I think the best option is to start talking about cutting back federal money, make it all run by competitive models. And if the states want to give a little money, that's up to them. People can move from state to state and do whatever they want to do. But the federal money has caused a lot of corruption and only fed left-wing politics and made a lot of these colleges completely worthless, and not what we need for American society, for that matter, or to make a decent person out of the experience of education. To be educated sometimes means that you've been indoctrinated into left-wing politics, and that's not good for anybody. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe. Make tomorrow a better day. If you ever read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. And we have a good day. See you later.